Coach Parker on tonight. And Coach Parker he was the first person I ever coached with when I got, when I went to school to get my degree to coach in public school. I coached football with him and I coached 1 year of football was all I could handle. And I'm gonna tell you some of that story later, Coach. But let's see. I'm gonna read this summary here. Coaching for over 25 years, he has built winning cultures, turning around underperforming teams, mentoring staff, and developing student athletes for collegiate success. Now, this next statement is pretty cool to me that you've tracked this. That you've had over 110 kids sent to NCAA, NAIA, or JUCO programs. That's pretty crazy that you've
And
kept.
I got to thinking about that being, everybody's all on this college kick and everything. And I went back and looked. What was cool is, yeah, that's great numbers for getting kids in college, but the ones that decided to go into the military,
Mm,
I can't believe how many I've got, probably 25, 30 going into the military. And then you look at other things. I had 4 Eagle Scouts when I was at North Springs.
wow.
And that was just cool. It was like we had an Eagle Scout every year. It was like, it was, you know, got to be where it was like, well, who's going to be the next one. And that
Right.
our slogan about the college stuff and who was going to go. It was like, who's next? Who's going to be the next one to go?
Right. Setting the expectation, and that's what happens. Just put the standard there, and that's what happens. That's so you were at North Springs for how long was you at North Springs?
But, I went to North Springs first with Steve Horton. Steve left Lithium, went up.
Okay.
And when he got there, I think they hadn't won a ball game in maybe 10 years. I mean, it was horrible. And then when he got there, I think he was there 2 years before I got up there. I can't remember, but they had won 3 ball games when I got there. And when I got there, this is the funny part. He said, "Well, the weight room's yours," and I said, "Well, where's the weight room?" And he took me in this little room down in the basement down there, and we couldn't even lift weights over our head because we was hitting the ceiling tile. And I took Peyton with me. My son Peyton was like 9 then, and
Mhm.
I was getting my workouts ready that I did at Alexander, which was a whole animal into its own. But one of the seniors come up to me. He said, "Coach Parker, I can't lift that weight." And I said, "What do you mean you can't lift that weight?" I said, "You're my starting center." He said, "Coach, ain't nobody in here can lift that weight." He said, "I'm the strongest kid in here, and I don't bench for 200 pounds." And I went from Alexander where I had almost 35 kids benching over 300 when I left, and I had 2 benching 400 and something. So it was like, wow, it was like, hit me in the face. It was one of them humbling moments, kind of like what you talk about.
Yeah.
But when we started setting up groups and we started doing power cleans, they didn't even know what a power clean was. They was looking at me like I was crazy. And I put Peyton in a group with them at 9 years old to teach them. He was
How
showing
to do.
them 9. So it was like a whole fresh start doing everything over there.
Nowhere to. Well, that's. I mean, if you look at it one way, I guess there's nowhere to go but up. But you
Yep.
got to stick. You got to stick it out.
Mm.
You got to stick it out. That's one of the things my pastor he always says, and it's been the theme for the last couple of days for some reason. But I've been at the church now for over 20 years, and it's always been about just show up. If you can just show up, don't quit, and keep showing up. It's kind of like with you go to a program like that.
And that's
You,
what I tell people about the weights all the time. The weight part of it, everybody's got to work out. Everybody's got a workout plan. But the key to it is doing it every day.
yes.
Get is to buy into it, do it every day. I mean, half the battle's won right there.
Yeah. That's a I mean, for real, that's the biggest lesson is just continue to show up. I spoke with a little girl today that had started a program, a health and wellness program, and she wanted to practice her pitch on me. And she had started the program to be a coach in a health and wellness situation. And that's what I told her. I said, you need to do this like 100 times. You need to do this a lot. She's already pretty good, but if you don't keep doing it, Yeah, the key is doing. Everybody's got a workout plan. Everybody's got a way to get rich. Everybody's got to do. It's like this stupid podcast. It's like, well, this has been on my mind to do for 2 years. You can ask Steve Camp, man. I didn't even want to go see Steve Camp because every time I'd see him, he had asked me had I started it yet. And so anyway, yeah, you got to show up, man. You just if you just keep showing up, and if you keep showing up and lifting a little bit of weight, the next thing you know, the next thing you know, you're stronger. You look back and you don't
But
even realize it.
it's just like our faith too. We got to show up every day.
And a coach, don't get me started. Yeah.
You know, if you got to get up, you got like in the morning. My thing in the morning, I get up. Gretchen, she'll be doing her thing, because she's teaching still too. So she'll be upstairs. Well, I'll go downstairs. I'll get the coffee ready. I'll get me a cup of coffee and I'll go sit down on the couch. And that's my little quiet time. I sit there and sip my coffee and pray and get myself ready for the day. But it's you got to show up for it.
Yeah.
And I came up with this little slogan that I used for weights. And when I got to think about it, it was really more, when you look at it, could be about everything that's part of your faith. Like one of my favorite Bible verses is Philippians 4:13. And so I came up with this little slogan that said, "Get swole."
Mm,
Get, all right. So get, God empowers thee. Swole,
okay.
strength will overcome limitations every time. And when I was thinking about it, it was like, because I got to thinking, well, if I take a program and I can get them strong, they always say, that little slogan, I'm the little cliches is all out there, about, hard work beats talent when talent don't work.
Yeah.
But it's the same way. If you can work, you can get somebody with an average talent to
Hmm.
achieve if you can get them to that point. And it's the same way in our faith. If, you know, God sees us as, you know, doing everything and being in there, where we don't look at ourselves as a minute little minuscule. But if he gives us the tools, it's up to us to let our strength show through and be part of it by doing our daily walk with him every day and doing what we're supposed to do.
It's, I mean, I'm hearing something in what you're saying, and I find the faith and the study of the word interesting because everybody's hearing their own angle on like when you was just speaking. There's probably who all hear this will hear a different angle on it, but man, if you can just think about all we really are required to do for the Lord is show up. Like, and that's just the work. I mean, it's work to get out of bed in the morning. You know what I mean? But
That is.
that's the thing, right? Yeah, it took a couple of times this morning, but especially after that break. But man, you make me think about so much, and I need my little pen so I can make some notes as we go through this because um, what I find fascinating as I've talked to coaches is the and I've you'll be the third one that I've had on here, and everybody has their own little deal. But I was talking to maybe it was Fulkerson off record or whatever or something, but I don't know how somebody coaches and doesn't have some sort of faith underneath that thing.
No,
I,
it's gotta have that foundation. I mean, it's the basis for everything. And really, I mean, everybody says, and I feel that way too. Coaching is a calling, but coaching is also a ministry. You know, and it puts us in. Football's a vehicle, just like it's a vehicle to get to college, to get the other thing. It's a vehicle for us to get in kids' lives, get in the youth's lives. You know, um, I was talking to one of the other coaches about it the other day. And our youth right now is so impressionable and so it's different. It's very different right now. And we have to stay fast in our beliefs and doing what we should do so that those kids see that light. I mean, it's one thing to talk it. Everybody can talk it. But For me, I've always been one of those coaches where, I always try to my actions were really my biggest thing. You know, I might talk to them, but see them when it's upset, put my arm around them, give them a hug.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
E
I've seen you do that a million times.
and I mean, even back, when when I was lifting weights, I would pick groups
Yeah,
to
yeah.
lift so they could say, "Well, coach is making us do this." No, coach is doing it with me,
Hmm.
and it's not like God. God does everything with us, you know. So he's like our supreme coach is the way I look at it, and the Bible's my playbook,
Hmm.
and you got to break everything down off of that.
There's
But
a there's a there's a picture of Christ. When you talking about giving an example, he literally gave us the example. He set the example. And I'm not talking about he didn't cuss and he didn't, commit adultery. I'm not talking about that. He didn't do that. That's not what I'm talking about. He set the example of a supreme sacrifice of serving. He died on the cross. He gave everything he had. And that's one of the things that when I stopped coaching softball was so hard because that's all I knew. That's all I did. I was I mean that's just all I did. And if you coach football or if you coach a sport, I don't hardly know. It would be hard pressed for me to think about of a coach. I'd have to sit here for a minute that didn't. When I see them, I think that they are probably thinking about their season, even if they're not in season. They're probably, am I making sense? They're that committed to it.
you know, somebody asked me, well, y'all got off season coming up. You don't have an off season. Uh,
Yeah.
the way I look at it, you got preseason, in season, postseason, recruiting season,
Mm.
and developmental season.
Yeah.
So
It's always, you
you
just,
all going on.
yeah. There, I had no idea. Um, I had, I had no idea what I was getting into when I went back and get my degree. Um, to teach, but I remember a couple of really standout moments early, and that was when they. I may tell this story some other time on here, but when I was hired, and then that first year we had three principals.
You know it.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that
Yeah.
year.
Plan A, plan B, plan C.
They all within the same. I tell people that and they don't believe me, but
Yeah.
it literally
Well,
happened.
that was the year too that I was going to open the school up, and if anything happened, they was calling me. That's when
Yeah,
we all decided to go back and get our bachelor's degree for educational.
Yeah, y'all went back before I did because I went back. But anyway, yeah, that's funny. And but the other thing that was um big was when I met you and Winslet and Miss Brenda Holland. Y'all three just literally stood out. Um, I don't even know if Miss Brenda's still with us. I'd love to meet her. But Winslet, I think he retired my first year. He was his last year.
Yeah, I think that was his last year.
He dumped all of his social studies on the science teacher. He had all this
Good.
anyway. It was, but
Lord.
yeah, God, I hope I wonder about him. But man, when I met you, and you see, I didn't know at the time that people had a that uh, that administrators had a hard time finding coaches. I didn't know that, right? So I'm thinking because I'm thinking that, oh my God, this is what people live for. And so when you asked me to coach football, I was like, oh my God, I have hit the goal. Like this just, you know what I'm saying? It was like I'd won the Super Bowl. And then it didn't take me long. We were practicing one day and you looked around. Oh my God, I'm laughing. So I looked around and there was nobody there but me and you. I think that Reggie, was his name? Coach Red.
Yeah, Pearson.
What was his last name?
Pearson.
Pearson. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think he was there, but I don't think he was there that day. And it was just you and me and about three-quarters of the kids because all the kids didn't show up.
yeah.
And we had to wait on the parents. And you said something that stuck with me. they don't nobody care about this but me and you and maybe a few of the kids. You
Mhm.
told me that. And I was like, what? People don't care about you because that's just what I live for. But I hadn't never forgot that. And I don't even know why I told that story. Oh yeah, I do, because it stood out to me that that was what that's when coaching I realized what it was about. You had to find some way inside to do it. And brother, I knew that about halfway through that football season, I knew that I wasn't cut out for football. I knew if I was going to coach anything, it's going to be softball.
I mean, if you let that scoreboard define you,
Yeah,
you as a coach.
yeah. I and I yeah I learned that it was a big lesson for me was looking around and it was just us and I was like, wow, they don't nobody really care until you start.
That's what it was on the sideline, me breaking the clipboard and me Fred
Look,
leader.
I got to do something with this audio. I hope it sounds good, but it's cutting out every once in a while. But I think it's when we talk at the same time. But it's okay. Don't worry about it. But he was talking about breaking clipboards. I tell this story every chance I get. Look, I'm talking more tonight than I normally want to, but I have to. Some of my favorite memories were at Stewart Middle School. There ain't no doubt in my mind. It was some of the best teachers and most dedicated people I've ever met. Anyway, we were playing Chapel Hill and uh, football that year, and I think it was the last. Maybe it was championship. I don't remember. Or maybe it was. I don't remember what it was, but it was important. It was at the end of the year, and I don't even ever remember kicking a field goal, practicing it at all. We didn't have no field goal at the practice field. I don't know, but you called a field. You like kicked a field goal late in the game, and you just was watching the clock tick. And I thought, don't he know these are middle school kids? You got to. And anyway, I was freaking out, but I went behind everybody so you wouldn't see me. Nobody would see me. I was like, I just want to hit you with something, but you was just standing there. And then I don't even think you called timeout to kick the field goal. You sent the guys out there, and they kicked the field goal. And I don't even really remember if we won or not. I just remember going, I don't have the mentality for this. I, w- I mean, my mentality is you don't understand is I got kicked out later when Bryson started growing up. He was in high school, so he was 10th grade. Probably was he 16 or 17 years old. I'm coaching a I'm coaching a church league basketball game, and they kicked me out of the gym.
I
A
ain't nothing
church league basketball.
by itself. Coaching your kids, you can do a whole nother podcast on coaching your son. Believe,
Hey,
because I mean that there's that fine line when you got to turn off coach and just be daddy.
yeah.
Took me a long time to figure that one out.
Yeah, I don't think I really ever did. Bryson forgives me a lot of it, but even when he started playing golf, I don't think I ever did. Hey, this that reminds me of something I want to talk about. I want to get your thoughts on um, kids, right? Um, w- you've won some games. You've done some stuff. As long as you've coached, you've been in some games that were high intensity, had a quote unquote a lot riding on the game. When when at what point do you how far would you let a kid go? What am I trying to say? If a
How much?
kid is
How much you gonna let him have control of what's going on out there on that field?
no, well, that's another thought for another day, or maybe in a minute. But I want to try to get this thought out. I don't want to use a scenario because I want you to be pure with your answer without me having. But how far a kid's hurt,
Yeah,
but he still wants to. He could still contribute. He's hurt. Mom and daddy says it's good. You know, how important is that? How far would you go? Tell me, have you ever ran into that scenario? Let me ask that.
yeah. I have had kids that's tried to get back out there that's hurt. When it's something that is a bruise or a bang up, it's a little different. But nowadays, shoot, I'll even take it back. When I played in '88, I remember we was playing at Wheels High School, and I was running the football, and I went through the line of scrimmage, did a little spin move, and I felt this sharp pain hit me in the back. And I laid on the ground. I wasn't going to get up. But our offensive tackle, Terry Castor, jerked me back up off the ground and said, "We got to go. We got to go." And we had those white silk pants back then at Lithia. And I remember putting my hands on my hips during the huddle. Well, I thought it was sweat that was pouring down my hands. But then when I went to get in my stance, which I was about to run the football again, my whole hand was solid red from blood. And I ran the ball, got a few yards here and there, and went straight to the sideline. And I remember them taking me to the sideline, pouring peroxide on my pants and my back, putting the gauze on my back, and sending me right back in the next play. But you can't do that nowadays. I mean, the way things are now, you just it's a different animal. I mean, it's a different game. And with kids with concussions and all this traumatic stuff, I think you got to be a little bit more weary of when they tell you something's wrong with them. Even though you might just think it might be a dinger or something, you got to be more weary and not let them out there because you never know. That might be that next hit and he's down and he ain't ever getting up again.
Yeah. There's there's two scenarios that come to mind, and I'm going to try to um well, I'll just tell the one as quick as I can. I was at Alexander and we were in the playoffs baseball, and I wasn't coaching this year, but I went over and was playing Cartersville, and there was a pitcher for Cartersville. He Not Cartersville, Cedartown. I'm sorry, it was Cedartown, and we it was Friday and Saturday, right? They played on Friday, and then they had to play again Saturday. It was a 3-game series, and uh, I don't remember exactly how it went down. I remember he pitched the first game against us. He was already going to college. He had, he was already had a scholarship, and he was pitching for Cedartown. We won the first game like 1-0 or something. We squeaked it out, and then we um we played the middle game on Saturday morning, and we lost it. If I'm not mistaken, we lost that game. But anyway, then they had to play the other game that day, Saturday. So we played 3 games in 2 days. Well, he come back and pitched again Saturday, and he pitched over 90. He pitched over 90. He had 90 pitches, over 90 pitches in both games, and he wound up losing. He wound up losing the game. He might have beat us the first game. I don't even remember. But anyway, for some reason he wound up pitching 2 games, and I remember late in the game, um, they were going to take him out. It was a tight game even then. It was like I think we were up 3-1 or something, but it was tight. They want to take him out. He wouldn't come out, and he wouldn't come out. And coach left him in, and he finished the game, and we wound up beating him. And I think he went on. He didn't get hurt or anything, but I remember thinking to myself. I told Bryson this. I asked Bryson about it, my kid, as a later on. Um, after he done graduate high school, I thought what he thought about it. I said, my thing is that scenario. If you want to have a championship team, you're just about going to have somebody on your team like that. That's just my thinking. Um, I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
But you forgot to have those kids that go above and beyond. I mean, and a lot of times they'll be hurt and they won't tell you just so they can keep going. For instance, Peyton's senior year, when we got COVID and he came back after COVID, he dropped from right around 225 down to 188 in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And when he got back, we was playing South Forsyth, and they had this big old cat that was going to Tennessee, and he put Peyton on the ground, and I watched it because I was watching it on TV. I wasn't able to be there with him because of the COVID stuff, but I could tell it hurt him, but he got back up, and we didn't know he kept telling me, "Dad, my back's hurting, my back's hurting, my back's hurting." And, and I was like, "Well, where's it hurting at?" And where he had shown me, I was like, "Well, that's not a muscle. I don't understand where you're hurting right there, kind of thing." So he made it through the rest of the football season. We went second round of playoffs that year. We get to wrestling, and he goes and picks the kid up about to scoop him. And when he did, he hit the ground and he said, I can't. And I was like, what? I mean, and this is a kid that, deadlifts like 520 pounds. So I was like, dude, he don't weigh like 180 right now. So Gretchen took him, got him x-rayed, and they said his pelvis had been broke
Wow.
right there in the back. So,
Yeah.
and where it had grown back, instead of, in that lining back up, it kind of did like this. So that scar tissue from his pelvis being broken that game and him just playing with it had built back. So now, I mean, he's still dealing with back stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, okay, so which is
but
yeah,
you know, you play.
you play. Okay, so and what I wanted to express to Bryson, not I mean he was done playing. He whatever. He didn't play baseball anyway. He played golf, so it wasn't about a team anyway. But anyway, the point was, what did you rather do? And I've asked other coaches this, and I'm going to have some of them on there and ask them. I'm going to find a way to ask that question more succinctly. But what did you rather do as a human being? Had I rather let's take the guy at Cedartown. Had I rather no, I don't want to pitch. I'm not gonna pitch. I want to go to college. I'm afraid I'll blow my arm out. And I got a scholarship. I got my whole futures in front of me, blah, blah, blah. Or when I'm 60, 50, 60 years old, would I rather say I left it all on the field for my guys that day when I had the opportunity to do it? Which one did I rather live with? And that's a question that I mean, not that I'm not saying either one of them's right or wrong. I just think that that needs to be considered. And just because I don't think that that's considered much, I think that's part of the problem that's wrong with, and the reason that I think that's part of the problem that's wrong with things sports these days. Because, coach, I'm going to tell you something.
Well, the
A
mental
lot,
there like it used to be.
yeah,
And toughness, I'm afraid when they get out into the real world,
yeah,
they'll start getting rough and tough. They're not going to be able to know how to handle it.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly where my mindset is, and um, I think that man, I really hesitate to say some things I really want to say, but let me just put it this way: in the last 10 or 12 years, of all the years I've been coaching softball, I've only met probably 3 girls that had that mentality, and the
Hmm.
teams that they were on went further than any of the other teams.
Yeah.
And that's only my experience was on the softball field. Now I had a little bit of baseball, but anyway, um, dude, I don't even know. This is good. I knew this was going to be so good. We are. How long we into this thing? About 30 minutes, I think. I don't even know what time it is. Uh,
I got to thinking about something that kind of piggybacks off of that the other day. We try to teach all these kids to be leaders,
yes.
and we want them to be leaders. But if everybody on the team is a leader, everybody's going a different direction. And I got to thinking about it with our spiritual walk. And do we have to be a good follower,
Hmm.
and we got to teach people to be good followers to go along with the leaders. Because if you don't have those followers to follow in with them and be good followers, then who you gonna lead if everybody's going 900 different directions? And
Wisdom.
I've been kind of looking at some different character things. We've always taught like character building and all these different little things for our leadership team. We call them our leadership crew. But I want to look into some stuff about following. And, like the disciples laid everything down and followed Jesus. You know, there comes a chance, yeah, everybody wants to be that leader, but you got to have those followers.
Yeah.
And those followers later on become leaders of others because of their skills that they learned and how they honed what they did. But that's something I think too that has got out of sports. I mean, you don't have those kids that will jump on that bandwagon and follow that
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
the fire, you know. And it's bad to say, but I think money's ruined. It's already ruined college,
Yeah.
and it's trickling down to our high school kids. Because when you got parents and stuff coming in saying, "Well, how much money are you gonna get with my kid NIL money?" Dude, this is high school ball. And I've even heard some people say it, rent kids, 6, 7, 8 years old. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This ain't what
Wow.
it, you know.
Now you talk about the yeah, no, it's definitely not what it's about. And sometimes we get rabbit trailed on some of this stuff, but you're talking about the faith walk of uh w- of the faith piece of this sports thing that we're doing. That's one of the reasons that baseball story or any story like Peyton's story, like, look, don't regret what you did because while you were doing it, sure you wanted to play and maybe selfish, but especially if you're there's three things. I'm gonna throw them out there now. I would have only said one before you mentioned what you just said. One is if you're one of the better players on the team. If you're one of the better players on the team and you don't step up, then you're not stewarding what you have.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you got to sacrifice a broken arm or a concussion, but you need to think about what you're doing.
If
Second
I
thing,
got to kids too on that, God gives us all talents, but what we do with our talents is our gift to Him.
yes,
So, if we're talented and we're not doing what we're supposed to do and being that stewardship, then we're not glorifying and giving what our talent is fully about that He has gave us.
yeah, that's exactly right. That word glory in my little bit of studying that I get to do is or no, that's wrongly said. A little bit of studying I do. It's the physical manifestation of God on the planet. So we glorify God. That means we're literally bringing to the physical world this spiritual thing. And that's what we're not glorifying him if the gifts that he's given us, if we don't use it on earth, if we don't walk, if we don't get up and work, if we don't show up, we're not glorifying him. We're not doing anything on the other. There's so much, coach. Like this podcast is a perfect example because I'm not like this interviewing person. I want to talk all the time. I'm just saying. So that don't make for a good interview person. But what I realized the other night with Fulkerson was that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm only supposed to, and it's okay if I whatever. That's not the point. All I'm really supposed to do is figure out this technical stuff, the video stuff, because y'all don't have time to do it, and y'all don't have. This is what he's shown me how to do,
And
and if
it's a vehicle to reach others.
that's exactly what Fulkerson said. And it just humbled me. It just broke me. I got off the thing. I'm about to cry now. He said, Coach, thank you for giving us this platform. And I was like, what? All I did was plug in a computer and a camera, but that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And it took me 2 years. I'm so dumb. I'm so self-centered and blinded by my own self that anyway, God is unreal. But if he's given us these gifts, yeah, I think we ought to steward them. And I think kids need to understand that you have a choice to make. You don't have to do it, but you need to know you have the opportunity to lead a bunch of people. One of my favorite stories is when Mick Harper won. I think it's the first time he won state softball. He had a little girl pitching on a broke leg. She pitched like the last half of the season with a broke leg. She pitched the last half of the season with a broke leg. I wonder why they won state. The rest of the kids know what she's going through. You don't think they gave that little extra effort? But then you talk about followers, man. That's what I was talking about a minute ago. If you're one of the better ones on the team, if you're a good follower, or if you're a good leader, if you're one of those, you have such an opportunity, and anybody can be a follower. We just got to humble ourselves. I didn't mean to talk,
That's
but
that's the thing right there, though. You got to humble yourself. Hey, now us coaches are some of the worst ones about this. All right, you talking about humbling. You go be a head coach, and then all of a sudden you ain't the head coach no more and you got to step down. And that's kind of what happened at North Springs. I was the head coach, got asked to step down. Well, I'm sitting in my office after practice. Our AD's running the practices, and we in about 45 minutes. And one of the kids come up to me and say, Coach Parker, uh, can you come down to the field? And I was like, well, I'm not coaching anymore. And they said, well, Coach, he needs you to come down there. So I was like, okay, because it's about the kids. It's about the kids.
But
And
still,
when I got down there, he was like, well, I know you ain't gonna be the head coach, and I know how things went down, but will you stay and run the offense and be the OC for the rest of the year? And part of me wants to say, well, you blanket, I want to go off, but then as soon as I walked down on the field, all my kids started clapping. They said, Coach is back, Coach is back. And it's kind of like that little picture I posted, I guess about 2 or 3 weeks ago on Facebook, come up on my memories. When me and Peyton left North Springs and then came to Lithia to play, we went back and played North Springs at their senior night. And we beat them pretty bad. I mean, it was like 45-6, something like that. But after the ball game, my players that I had, my seniors, and even a couple of the other classmen, they come up to me and started hugging me, after the game, and told me, I love you, Coach. No. Well, we getting ready to run back to our little huddle. And if you look in that picture, Coach Jarvis has got the Lithia kids already huddled up over there talking to them. And me and Peyton standing there with like 10, 12 North Springs kids.
right.
Arms around us. And, everybody's crying. And they were like, Coach, we got to get a picture with you. We got to get a picture with you before you go. And to me, that's probably one of my most humbling and one of my most favorite memories
Mm.
was standing there, even though I had different colors on, but I was still that coach. You're our coach. You're our coach, and we want a picture with you. You're our coach.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, being humbled is that you use the word humble in two scenarios there. One when you went you went down to be the OC, and the other one was when the kids took their picture with you.
yeah,
Isn't that nuts? And
and it's all about those kids, and that's
it
what I.
is.
If it wasn't the kids, why would I want to coach? To
Mm.
and them come back, and say, Coach, I even had a little boy. I was trying my best to remember who he was, and he was telling me all this inspiration stuff that I did for him in the weight room at Alexander. And now he's that's what he does. He's a personal trainer and does stuff like that. And I was sitting there going, who is this little kid? I can't remember that little boy. And I had to go back and look through pictures because
To find out.
and it was like, I remember that little cat. He couldn't
Yeah,
even hardly lift the bar when we got in there.
there was man. There's so many. Yeah, there's so many good stories.
Like
We,
about humbling yourself. We that first year we made it to the playoffs at North Springs. They hadn't made it to the playoffs since 1997, and we thought we was in already because we was beating the team, and there was like I think we had a minute left or a minute 05, something like that, and our quarterback was smart. He's also a pitcher on the baseball team. He had a 4.25 GPA. Um, he was smart as a whip. And we're down on about 10-yard line. So, we're going to run victory and just, go out of the ball game. So I call victory. He calls timeout. And I said, what the heck are you doing, son? And he come over, he said, Coach, if we don't score right here, we're not going to the playoffs. I said, what do you mean we ain't going to the playoffs? And that's when I was the OC and Dan Devine was the head coach. And Dan said, Reese, what are you talking about? He said, Coach, we're going to have a head-to-head. And if it's by point differential. Said we need 6 more points.
wow.
And we could have missed out on the playoffs for the first time in what, almost 30 years. Because we was just saying, oh, we won.
You
We won.
want
But Reese had enough common sense. We got to score, and
That's a good story.
and he ended up. I mean, we ran it in, got the touchdown, and that we ended up making the playoffs by that point differential on that 6 points, and that's how we got there that first year. But then I had after that
Mm,
playoff game, talking about the kids that you know do the extra and above. We had a kid. Well, I'm pretty sure you remember that day y'all came and I showed you Reese when Reese was throwing the ball.
yeah.
And I said, but I got another one right here. It's got a cannon. And you remember I told him to throw the ball on the rope from the 40-yard line to the goal?
Uh-huh. I
He,
remember that day.
well, when we got that kid at North Springs, he was a defensive tackle. And he played defensive tackle. But I watched him throw one day and we got talking. And he said, well, I really want to be a quarterback. And I said, well, if you want to be a quarterback, you can be a quarterback. I said, but you're going to have to work. And that year that Reese broke all those records at North Springs, we got, first round. Who do we pick? First round ever. We got to go play Buford. So our first time in 20 years, we get to go play.
Welcome to the playoffs.
Yeah, so we get strokey dope, But after the ball game, Brian comes up to me and puts his arm around me. And he said, I know Reese broke over school record, Coach. He said, but I'm going to break all the other ones next year.
Wow.
And I'll break his records. And I was like, all right, I hear you, boss. I hear you. And that Monday, we get back to school. And I'm getting ready to get in the car and drive that 2.5-hour drive back, to Douglasville. And he's got the whole wide receiver core out there on the field throwing the ball.
Wow.
And he did. The next year he came back and he threw for over 3,000 yards and ran touchdowns and everything. But, it was something too. He waited his turn. He built all the way up. He sat behind Reese that junior year. And then his senior year, when he got a chance to go, and he said, Coach, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And he had that fire about him.
Above and beyond. Above. There's an attitude with the above and beyond attitude that, and that's what I was saying earlier about in the last 10 years, I haven't seen much of it. I just haven't seen much of it. I mean, I don't know up there where we're at Adairsville. That whole community, you have Cartersville, you have Cedartown, you have Calhoun, you have Rome, and they're all, I mean, it's a sports, it's not normal. It's not like Douglasville where, Lithia's good. Well, that's good. Lithia's good over there this year. Well, next year's Alexander. You know what I'm saying? It's like imagine all four of those being really, really good all the time, and everybody and there's little Adairsville sitting right in the middle, like, what are we doing, right? But I just haven't seen it, and it's really, but they got to be out there somewhere. And I'm imagining that they're at the other schools. I mean, I'm just saying I'm not dogging Adairsville at all. It's just they're great kids. Um, it's just that mentality of like whatever it takes, I'm gonna do it. It's not. I don't see much of it now. They do it in education though. They ain't playing about that part of it, but on the sports field, it don't show up. Um, but I think that in the faith walk, man, I have had a buddy at church really hurt my feelings a couple times about, you know, this thing of grace. You give another kid a chance or whatever, and God has extended grace to us, and I'm so thankful for that. But I really think that I've taken advantage of that grace. You give a kid grace, and just take football for example, and if they don't do anything with the grace, there's no benefit to that kid. He doesn't get any better. That you give them another chance and they don't go to work. Well, that's what's happened some in part of my walk. I've been extended grace, but I don't work on the thing that he gave me grace in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I remember Coach Kenny Palmer when I got to Alexander. I remember we had this little boy on our football team, and I was just like, Coach, come on. Y'all took him from wide receivers, put him in the linebackers, put him in the running back. And now he's down here with me with O-line, and he's soaking wet 135 pounds. And I remember Kenny saying, well, sometimes football is better for the kid than that kid is for football.
Mm-hmm.
And, that resonated all over me. And it was like, talking about grace, and it's kind of weird too. Gretchen's even said it before, it's like some of the worst kids gravitate to me, you know, and,
You taught me that. I'm gonna tell you, you taught me that.
and, Scott Dean say I was the Pied Piper. I could play my flute and get everybody to go with me, but it just if I could do something to help that kid get out of a situation later in
Yeah.
life,
Mm.
stuff. And I mean, it's even I've had some kids, that some bad stuff's happened to them, and one in particular, he hurts my heart every time I think about it because he's locked up for life. But he told me, he said, when he got arrested and everything, he said, Coach, he said, when they put me in here, all I can remember you is your voice telling us to quit doing that, to quit doing that. And it was stuff, they used to play like when they was kids. And I get on to them and say, that ain't what you're supposed to do. And he said, that's all I could think about was, you kept saying, don't do that, don't do that. But, with his incident, yeah, it was too late because of what happened. But, there's other kids that, that might be that spark for that kid to help them get out of what they got to do and move on. And I mean, just think if God didn't give us grace, where we'd be, because we
Yeah,
sin.
yeah. Abs. We, you talk about that kid that is in jail, and it's kind of like too late for him. But I don't. Man, the God has such a way,
It's
Coach.
for the world for him, but it's not too late
Yeah,
in the eternal world.
right.
And that's what I tried to, convey to him. Well, yeah, you ain't ever gonna get out, but one day you will be out if you take salvation. And I said, then you'll get to march where everybody else. You won't be locked up in here. You'll be free again. But you got, and that's the great thing. God and Jesus laid it out there for us and said, we'll make you free.
Yeah. God, man, you just made me realize, like, literally, and I've heard this 1,000 times. We'll use football because you're a football coach. Life is like football. It's gonna be over one day. But what you learn here, what you learn in a football game, you're going to get to take it outside of that. And that's what happens here with this life. No matter what we do here, if we'll take salvation, it'll be, I love when you said that. We'll take salvation. If we'll just take it, because we ain't even got to do anything for it. All we do is take it. It's crazy. I could, if I didn't have these headphones on, I'd run. I think I'm Pentecostal. You, look, I wrote something down. What I do, I wrote it down. I was going to ask you about it. Oh, cliches. You said something. You're talking about or little sayings or little quotes or whatever. Um, I heard one the other day that I can't get out of my head. It was on a TikTok, I think, and there's no football coach. I think maybe they were in the playoffs here. I don't even know, but this is what he said: if you give up on what you love, you'll give up on life.
Hmm.
And he was trying to get his kids to, he's trying to get his kids to respond at halftime. Is when he said it. Don't give up, because if you give up on what you love, you'll give up on life. Man, that just what old 63-year-old dude, that really just got me. Like, man, yeah, it don't mean you're gonna die, I guess, but you just kind of give up. You give up on what you love.
When you give up, you die inside.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the way I feel. And, and that's something I've been struggling with. And that's why, too, I decided, I think I still got some years left in this
Oh
old.
yeah, man.
I've got to get out and, do something with some of these kids because, you know, if somebody's got to do it. And, if I got these talents and I'm just sitting here down here in my office and, you know, consulting people and writing X's and O's on paper, which that's about all I've been doing this year. But, that is not helping the kids. I need to be back out there with the kids.
Yeah, there's some people like that, and that's the thing about Fulkerson. That rascal's 70 something years old. and he's down there working with kickers and punters at Villa Rica.
No, matter of fact, if something happens that might happen, I might be giving him a call because
That'd
I might
be
need a kicking guy.
he's. I mean, you guys, you are coach. That's encouraging because I mean, that's one of the reasons I haven't retired from teaching yet. Is like, I mean, I could retire because of my age, right? It's not about 30 years or whatever. We talked about this before the podcast, but man, why? What am I going to, I still got good years left. I'm learning, and selfishly, I'm still learning. These kids have taught me even how to do this crazy stuff. But on top of that, um, I tell my first block this semester, I said, guys, I'm literally gonna miss you guys. I don't know if I'm ever gonna miss a group like I'm gonna miss this group of kids that I have in my first block. Just another class, you know what I mean? But they are just I recognize it, I guess now. But dude, yeah, man. Now we got some time left, and I when I heard that, coach, you know what I love? I love softball, and I may have to find me another field somewhere. I may have to find you was talking too about let's talk some more about this because I like this thought. You had to take an OC job after being a head coach. Well, that's same I went through the same experience at Lithia. I was over there running that program. Of course, they never did really get off the ground and just beat our head against the wall, as much as we could. And then I had to go to Alexander as an assistant softball coach. And at the time, you couldn't you all I would have told you is I done forgot more softball than Coach Graham will ever know. But I'm telling you what, man, when I got past it, when you got past it, coach, I'm telling you, it's some of the best. When the Lord finally broke me, when he got me, it's the best times of my life. And it was the Lord showed me what I was good at or best at. I'm not saying I'm even good at it, but what I'm best at. And Coach Graham was patient enough with me to let me get there. And so anyway, I can't wait to have him on if I can get him on.
I'll tell you a good one you can get on the show too now.
That's what I need.
And he's got a testimony. Now it's not going to be so much sports minded, which is going to have some sports in it. Is old Dutch Nelson.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad. Now that sucker can tell a story too.
Now me and Dutch was roommates in college.
Well, that explains everything I need to know. Why didn't Dutch ever told me that?
Yeah, we played ball together. He was at Bell Art, so we always played against each other in the All Stars and stuff when I was at Beulah. But then when we got to college, we was roommates. Me and him was roommates.
He was at Alexander and you were at Lithia?
Matter of
That
fact, his junior year, they were beating us with 60 seconds left on the clock, and they kicked the ball off, and I ran a kickoff back and scored a touch. And then we onside kick, got the ball back, scored again, and in 60 seconds ended up scoring 2 touchdowns, beating them 21-20.
oh my gosh, 14. Yeah, half the scores was in the last minute of the game.
I mean, it was like it was on. That was Coach Phil Williams. Coach Phil's good. Now, Coach Phil be a good one to get on here too.
Man, I had a thought, man. Phil, he don't even Coach Williams don't even know what he did for me. Because you remember I helped um Coach Adair with baseball at Douglas County, and Coach Phil had just given it up, or he hadn't been out of it very long. And I remember sitting on the field there at Webb Field. I was coaching first base, and our dugout was first base dugout. And I remember thinking, and I looked up at Coach Williams because he was teaching when I was in school. I remember he was watching the game, and I thought, this is surreal. This
Mhm.
was my first year because I just got done coaching football with you. I'm like living the dream, man. I mean, I have hit the jackpot. And I looked up and saw Coach Williams sitting up there, and I scared me to death. I thought, man, I hope I don't have to make a decision here because it's going to be the wrong one, and I'll never be able to live that down. But anyway, yeah. And then I got to hang out with Phil a little bit. Reggie, you remember Reggie Davis? I don't know if you remember that name.
Yeah, from Alexander.
Yeah, he passed away during COVID. Um, but good friend of mine. But anyway, Reggie coached a travel team, and I got to hang out with Phil a little bit. Man, he's a good dude. I'll get a hold of him. I've got Dutch and Phil listed here now that you told me. Um, but Yeah, I have.
Yeah, but like going back to, following, I got to thinking about when
Mm,
being a follower. Well, I've been an assistant head coach more than I have been a head coach.
hmm
And I've took something from everybody that coach under to help, kind of develop what I got. And it was one of those humbling experiences when you know, like when I went to Lithia, I was the O line coach there. I went and the assistant head coach for Corey. But, I could have looked at it two ways. I could butt heads with him, try to do everything my way. Or I could sit back and say, hey, you know what? He's the head coach. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to do what he wants me to do. And I'm going to learn from him and I learned some good stuff, some real good stuff. But, you've got to be able to, I think a coach has got to be able to lead, but a coach has also got to be able to follow. And it's just a lot of coaches can't do that other part.
okay, so that makes me ask this question. I've heard it a lot over the years. I just don't have any senior leadership.
Now
How do you deal with that?
I've been on teams that didn't have it, and sometimes you got to force one to do it. And if the seniors don't want to lead, you might have that junior that might step up. You might have a sophomore that steps up. You might have a freshman that steps up. But I mean, if they don't want to lead, then you got to turn them into followers. And I mean, you either got to get them to follow you or you got to get them to follow somebody else. But
Yeah, I, I, I think the key. I thought about that a lot because I've heard it a lot. I really have. I've heard it as an excuse a lot. I'm not even going to
great excuse now.
do what now.
Great excuse.
Yeah, it's a great exactly. But when you said something, I think is for me is the answer. If you've got senior leadership, and I've been on teams where there were some senior leadership. There was I saw some senior leadership, but most of the time, well, let me put it this way: whenever there's not any, it's incumbent upon the coach to be the leader. Who else is going to do it? And you
Mhm.
and your problem, and in my experience, just watching from the sidelines or from the assistant coach, because I, like you said, I've been an assistant a whole lot more than I've been a head coach. And what I've seen is if the coach has to be the leader, you're not going to go very far as a team. You're just not. You might as well ratchet that in as a
Because I mean, we can't get on the field with them.
right. You can't do it.
I mean, we can get them. I try not to say motivated. I'd rather a kid be inspired because I
Yeah,
think a little longer. But I mean, you
maybe
got
that.
that guy on the field that it gets them up, rallies them up, that they look to. Because if they look at you on the sideline, buddy, I can get out there and make the tackle for you.
Right,
Can't throw
right.
the catch the ball. That's y'all got to do that.
Yeah, there's a yeah.
And
I
I
think
that's something that's lacking too, though. We're not building these kids up. It's like, when we first started doing the character education stuff, we just did it with the senior group. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, they're going to leave. So who's next up? So then we started picking like 4 freshmen, 4 sophomores, 4 juniors. And then we had, maybe 8 of the seniors. And then those 4 got to pick who joined them the next year up. So those 4 would say, okay, well, we want these 4 coach. And I made them interview for it to be on that senior leadership team.
hmm
And they had those 4 players had to, vouch for them. But then those other ones that are under them, they still had to vote on them. So, it helped build up so that you had that who's next up and
right,
saying, well, we put everything into this group. Now we ain't got nothing no more.
right. You got to do it all over again.
You know, I can't, I'm pretty sure, I'm thinking it was Kenny said that too. He said in football, in every sport, he said, you want to get to the point where you reload,
hmm
you don't rebuild. If you have to rebuild every year, you're going to get tired. But if you set them up so that all you do is reload and it's that next man up mentality, he said you can make it a long way in this profession. But you got to be able to reload. You just can't go and rebuild. And I mean, I've been able to take some struggling teams and rebuild them up and get them to that reload spot. But it takes work. It's a lot of
Mhm.
work.
Yeah. That goes back to one of my first thoughts tonight was how much time coaches have to dedicate to what they're doing. And it's not about the money. I saw where, so there's some head coaches making 120, $130,000 in high school. Coach, that still ain't enough money. Not for what they do. It's not enough money.
Then too, I mean, you got all these people that are seeing these college guys making these mega money,
Yeah.
but a high school coach ain't got that. And the high school
No.
coach go home and do lesson plans and get ready and do stuff with his wife and his kids and pay them bills and all that other stuff. So
Well, these this high school kids are the most impressionable moments of their life. I really believe that. The older that I get, I believe that because I mean, we all reflect back on our high school days, and I've really noticed that about Adairsville is they take that the community there really pours into the high school experience. It don't
mhm.
necessarily manifest as like there's some good programs there. The basketball team's pretty good, but I was going to mention too what you were talking about reloading. Um, at Adairsville, the JROTC program, dude, let me tell you something. That's exactly what he does. Um, um, Major and First Sergeant, I've gotten to know them a lot. I hang out with them as much as I can because it's really obvious. He also coaches the girls' soccer team, the Major does, and they're pretty solid. And that's what he does. He reloads, but he does that. It's a military approach where freshman. He knows how to build the leaders, and every year the seniors are like, that it's my turn. Let's go. And I mean, they're not like playtime either. Like they're national champions all the time. And I think they come in second this year. And a guy, but anyways, just a beautiful stories. I think that you're on to something there, but you have to be forward thinking. And God, can you imagine the amount of time that you have to put in to do that? But if you can develop the leaders, if you can get a mindset in them young that they're going to be leaders, that's what we expect out of you, then you can reload. Then this cliche I never did. Yeah, I did too. I hit on that cliche um about if you don't if you give up on what you love. When I saw that, one of the things that I'm kind of reverting back now for a minute, but I still struggle thinking about the Lord. He loves us that much. He I mean, I know that he came and he was on the cross, but we're talking about this entire our entire existence. He has put up with us. Like he's put up with us. And he hasn't given up on what he loves. And that's the definition of love is just like all the way in. All man, I'm telling you what, there's some of you guys, I could talk to y'all all night. Like when I met you, the next person that impacted me was Mick Harper. He sent me and Stacy he sponsored us. The next major person I met that is in and I don't like Mick because he always beat us, but um, he sponsored us to go to Billy Graham's The Cove FCA marriage retreat. Changed my life, man.
Now
Absolutely.
go to the FCA Epworth thing,
Hmm.
and it helped me and Gretchen a lot. And we talk about us that we go through, but if you ain't got a coach's wife, you can't do this.
I
It's a whole nother breed
you
of
just
of
it's
what has to put up with us and the hours we pour into everybody else. And it's like Gretchen said, between August and November, December, she was a single parent. And, it was like when I came home, it would be like, getting to know each other again,
Yeah.
kind of.
That's a well, let me look over this thing. Um, here's something that I don't like the way this question's worded, but what if you could tell somebody it's question 10 there on your list, but what's one misconception people have about high school coaching that you'd like to give them some information about? To put it nicely.
Woo! Honestly, well, like I said a little while ago, we're not college coaches, and everybody's been talking about, especially at school today, about everything going on with Lane Kiffin.
Mm,
Yeah, chase the money, brother. Chase the money when you get to that level. But us as high school coaches, yeah, there's a couple of guys making in the hundreds and whatever, but everybody else is more or less just making what we're making, you know. And that misconception that we out there for the money and all this other stuff is probably the biggest thing. Because I'd say probably, even though now I've seen some bad ones out there, but I'd say at least 90% of the coaches are out there for the kids.
yeah. Right.
Even like me, when I got into coaching, I got back into it so kids wouldn't make the same mistakes I did, and that I could use my experience to help them go and do. And that's why, on that one stat about the 110 kids, I always kept up with how many got in college on scholarships, because that was something that was always on my heart, because there was letters that me and my son opened about 5 years ago that I didn't even open from high school, because people told me that that was too small of a school. And when he found that box and was going through it, and he was like, "Daddy, you didn't even open this." He said, "Can I open it and see what's in it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I had handwritten letters from coaches offering me scholarships that I didn't even know about, because people told me, "Oh, that's a small school. You don't want to go there." When who knows what kind of direction that might would have sent me in.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know. I was one of my kind of in the same realm when I was in high school. I remember walking into college was not even like in my family was not even like, and I wasn't good enough in sports to do anything. I played soccer in high school, and I wasn't going to go play soccer, but um, I remember walking into a little room, and hopefully somebody will hear this and it'll help them. Which reminds me of your buddy that's of your player that's locked up. His testimony being locked up on this podcast, maybe it'll help somebody else not make that mistake. God using that young man right now. If you ever talk to him again, you can tell him his testimony's getting out at least one more time, and maybe he's impacted. The Lord can use it somewhere. But I was thinking about when I was in high school, I walked into the career counseling office. It hadn't been open long. And all I remember was there's a little room about as big as this little room I'm in now. And all around the edges, there were brochures of different careers. And they were seemed like they were blue. I just remember it being it was the same color as Douglas County. And I remember walking in, there was a lady there. I know who the lady was. And I remember looking around going, I don't have a clue where to start. Didn't have a clue what I was even looking at. And I looked around and she didn't say anything. And um, I was in there for an awkward, 20 seconds. And then I turned around and walked out. And she never asked me anything. She never said anything. She was doing something in a book or something. And I wondered a lot of times what would have happened if she'd have asked me what I loved. What is it you want to do? What do you like? I know what I would have answered.
Just a simple question.
Just a simple question. And so that's one of the things that I make sure I do. If a kid ever halfway opens a door, I start telling them. I'll tell them that story, or I'll tell them something to 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 provoke their thoughts about start thinking now about something to do. Don't just wander out into the world and become a roofer. There ain't
Mm.
nothing wrong being a roofer, but don't just become a roofer because that's the first job you ran into. Go think about what you want to do. So yeah, man, I don't know how that story played into what you were talking about, but I do know that it's important that if the kids are well, I do too know now. I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did. I don't want them to have to go. They don't have to go through what I went through. Maybe my life will mean a little bit more because I helped intentionally to pour into somebody else. Um, One of my biggest, God Almighty, man, I tell you, you're talking about getting humbled. You probably had to do this before. I don't know, but when you have a kid call you up to um, speak at their mom's funeral or ask you a question about something that's like, man, I know you've had situations where like you can't talk about some of the man, and you like, why did you pick me?
Mhm.
I had a little girl come to me one time. I say a little girl, she's in high school. She came to me and started talking about some stuff, and I'm like, and I knew her mom and dad, and I'm like, sweetheart, we can't do this. We got to go talk. We got to at least do this in front of your mom. And it was a major thing. And I'm like, but when you realize when I begin, well, yeah, I thought the Lord gave me my degree so I could coach ball, but that's not what it was about. He used it as a tool, just like you said earlier with the football. It's just a vehicle. It's just a vehicle. God is good, coach.
All the time.
What is it? Dude, it is 8 o'clock. What time did we get started?
I don't know, about 6:30. We said all night.
Look, we're gonna do this again. You know now where we're at, kind of what we're doing. Um, One thing I would like to do, and I mentioned this to Fulkerson, I think I did it on air. At some point, I want to try this down the road, get a hold of a few of your players,
Mhm.
and I can put as many as we want on here, and we get 3 or 4 kids on here, and just have a ball, and just talk about old times. Man, that would really make a cool podcast.
Yeah. Hey, now what'd be fun is get me, Fulkerson, Horton, and Dean all
Oh
together.
my God, Horton, dude. What
Hey, some of them's gonna go back straight to Mo Bruner.
man, Mo, look, Horton, I've got to get Horton on here. Where's he? What is he doing now?
He's AD up at Lumpkin County.
Is he up there with? Is that where? Um, uh,
Fort-
golly, Mr.
Rob-
Hand,
Superintendent up there.
who is?
Bob Brown used to be the superintendent up there.
Okay,
And then Matt Remlord went up there too.
okay.
But Steve's at Lumpkin, but Nathan Hand is superintendent at Dawsonville up there.
Oh, okay.
And Remlord now is I think, assistant superintendent at Whitecap. If I'm not mistaken.
Coach, thank you, man.
No problem, brother. Anytime.
Guys, good. We'll do it again. Tell Miss Gretchen we said hello.
I'll do it.
I love you. Take care.
Hey, brother. Have a good